Will gold be revalued to $15,000? We don't have any official confirmation of that, at least not yet. It could be more, it could be less. I think that would be a sensible price to move it to. All we know is that Scott Bessent has advocated monetizing the Treasury's balance sheet, and as far as I can see, the only asset, and the obvious asset, which could be monetized, is the gold. So the only questions I've got are when and at what price. I think $15,000 makes sense, but maybe he'll pick another one. We'll see. If we have such a revaluation, it will send shockwaves through the global economy.
Several market indicators suggest that a significant revaluation of the gold price may be approaching, providing vigilant investors with a warning. The current gold cycle offers compelling opportunities for investors. Historical patterns, expert analyses, and economic indicators all point to a sustained bull market, with potential price targets ranging from $15,000 to $50,000 per ounce. Market analyst Clive Thompson points out that Bessant's recent remarks about monetizing the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet hint at a possible gold revaluation. He believes this is coded language, as gold is the only major undervalued asset the Treasury holds. Based on fundamentals, Thompson compares today's situation to 1934, when the U.S. secretly revalued gold to stabilize finances. He speculates a similar move could reprice gold to $15,000 an ounce. If true, he warns, it would remain hidden until the final moment. On February 3rd, Trump's new Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated, "In the next 12 months, we will monetize the asset side of the USA balance sheet." This statement has led Gillian Tett of the Financial Times to speculate that the rising speculation about the revaluation of gold may be a reason behind the surge in gold, against the backdrop of the U.S. government funding a new sovereign wealth fund. Examining market trends, Thompson suggests that the obvious early signal would be a sharp rise in gold prices, paired with a weakening dollar. At the end of 2019, the U.S. dollar made up about 53% of global FX reserves, with gold making up about 13%. As of the end of 2024, the U.S. dollar accounted for 46% of global FX reserves, while gold's share reached almost 20%. In other words, a roughly 40% gap was narrowed to an approximately 26% gap in about half a decade. If trends continue in a more or less linear fashion, within a decade, gold will replace the U.S. dollar as the world's largest FX currency. Before we dive into Clive Thompson's sharp insights from his latest interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss a moment when truth meets the market. Let's get into it.
Now, probably you're thinking this just benefits the rich, and at first you're absolutely right. I mean, let's consider Scott Bessent. He's the Secretary to the Treasury, one of the most important positions in the country. He has a say in what will happen. But before he was Secretary of the Treasury, he was the founder of a major hedge fund called Key Square Group, which had exposure to gold mining stocks. And before that, he was part of George Soros's team, the man who broke the Bank of England by betting against the pound. So taking big bets is something that he will know all about. Now, whilst he's probably divested himself of these private interests, probably as a requirement of taking office as Secretary of the Treasury, his public statements are what are most interesting. And this is where I get the information to say that remonetization of gold, probably at $15,000, is under consideration as I speak. So what Scott Bessent has said, he has talked about the need to monetize, and I'm using words he used, monetize the asset side of the US balance sheet. Now, if you're a financial insider, you know that's a clear code phrase for revaluing gold. Whilst he didn't use the exact phrase revalue gold in the context of the US balance sheet, the single most undervalued and readily monetizable asset on the balance sheet is the nation's gold reserve. It's crystal clear that when he says monetize the Treasury's assets, he must be talking about gold. There is nothing else that can be monetized. Now, I don't want to over-dramatize here. You can listen to me, and then you can go and do a Google search or ask ChatGPT to check what I'm saying is true. And then you can choose to take action or not to take action. But just remember, those are the exact words of the most important person in America when it comes to the soundness of the United States finances. And the way to monetize gold, or rather, let's say the way to monetize the Treasury's gold, is simply to repeat the 1934 sleight of hand. It was done before, so why not just repeat the trick? So how likely is this to happen in the near future? Well, any plan this big would have to be kept top secret until the very last second. So you won't see it announced in the news beforehand. But there will be signs. The only advance warning you might get is a rapidly rising gold price and a falling dollar without any obvious explanation. That could be a signal that insiders who knows what's coming are making their moves. Immoral, illegal, unjust, unfair, whatever. Prices often move before a major announcement. There's very rarely any prosecution. And perhaps today we have insiders who will be finding a way to secretly trade on the back of information they know is coming and you don't. And that's why I think before we have this move to $15,000 gold, you'll see the price moving up rapidly, you'll see the dollar moving down rapidly, and that will be your warning sign that it's imminent. So will gold be revalued to $15,000? We don't have any official confirmation of that, at least not yet. It could be more, it could be less. I think that would be a sensible price to move it to. All we know is that Scott Bessent has advocated monetizing the Treasury's balance sheet, and as far as I can see, the only asset, and the obvious asset, which could be monetized, is the gold. So the only questions I've got are when and at what price. I think $15,000 makes sense, but maybe he'll pick another one. We'll see. If we have such a revaluation, it will send shockwaves through the global economy. It could trigger a massive surge in the prices of other assets, like stocks or Bitcoin, as trillions of dollars of that new wealth in gold looks for a home.
Expert and trader Clive Thompson discusses the potential revaluation of U.S. gold reserves from $42.22 to $15,000 per ounce. He highlights that while the gold is officially valued at $11 billion, its market value exceeds $862 billion and could reach $4 trillion under revaluation. Revaluing the gold reserves could bolster the nation's balance sheet, potentially providing additional leverage in addressing fiscal challenges. It could theoretically reduce the national debt or provide funds for infrastructure and other national projects. However, a revaluation would require careful consideration of the potential economic consequences, including impacts on inflation and the value of the U.S. dollar. Drawing from history, Thompson explains how in 1934, President Roosevelt used a similar gold revaluation tactic to generate a profit and strengthen Treasury finances. Today, with rising national debt and soaring interest costs, Thompson says pressure is mounting to repeat this strategy. Furthermore, he notes growing speculation among financial insiders. If it occurs, it will likely be sudden, preceded by a soaring gold price and a weakening dollar. Let's get back to the interview.
We're talking about a potential revaluation of the US government's gold holdings from the statutory price of $42.22 to $15,000 an ounce. Today, I'm going to break down how this could happen, who gets rich, why the whispers about this plan are getting louder in the highest circles of power, and how you can know when it's about to happen and prepare yourself. Let's start with a simple fact. The United States government owns a lot of gold. It's about 261.5 million ounces, to be exact. But here's the crazy part. On the official books of the government, this gold is valued at just $42.22 an ounce. That's the statutory price of gold set in 1972. The gold thus has a book value of only 11 billion US dollars. But at today's market price of about $3,300, that same gold is actually worth over $862 billion. And if gold were to be revalued to $15,000 an ounce, that gold would be worth over nearly $4 trillion. But let's go back in history a little bit. Where did this gold come from in the first place? Currently, it's held by the US Treasury, which is a branch of the US government. But it wasn't always theirs. Back in 1934, in the middle of the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Gold Reserve Act. This law forced the Federal Reserve, who held the gold, to hand over all of its physical gold to the US Treasury. And in return, the Federal Reserve got a piece of paper, an IOU called a gold certificate. If you look at the Fed's balance sheet today, it's the very first asset listed on the balance sheet. It's called Gold Certificate Account, and it's valued at that same $11 billion. But it's just an accounting receipt. It's not a claim to get their gold back ever. The Federal Reserve cannot and may not convert that certificate into gold, and it has no right to ask for redemption of the certificate. So the only way it can be redeemed is if the Treasury so decides, and if they redeem it, they'll redeem it at the statutory price of gold, i.e. at $42.22 an ounce, which is $11 billion. So that gold certificate is on the books as $11 billion. It's only worth $11 billion, and it never will be worth any more, and it can't even be cashed in, at least not at the holder's behest. So we go back to 1934. All that gold was transferred from the Federal Reserve to the Treasury as a result of the Gold Reserve Act. But Roosevelt wasn't done on that day. The next day, he devalued the US dollar by over 40%. He did this by changing the official price of gold from $20.67 an ounce to $35 an ounce. Or more precisely, as it was worded in his proclamation, he reduced the gold weight of the dollar from 25.8 grains of gold, 9/10 fine, to 15.715 grains of gold, 9/10 fine. Obviously, we know it today as an increase in the price of gold from $20 to $35. Now, this move, this genius move at the time, created a $2.8 billion paper profit out of thin air. And Roosevelt made absolutely sure that that profit went straight to the Treasury, not to the Fed. He said, and I quote, "We believe that all profits should revert to the Treasury of the United States for the benefit of the country as a whole." And with that, the Fed was left with a bit of paper and nothing more. Obviously, their real gold was now gone. The move shocked bankers in London, Paris, and Zurich. The mighty US dollar that they held had suddenly lost 41% of its value overnight. Foreign bankers saw it as an aggressive, unfair trade tactic. It was a clear signal that the old rules of money no longer applied. So why am I talking about something which happened 90 years ago? Because today, the USA is facing a similar crisis. The national debt is spiraling out of control. The interest payments alone are becoming one of the biggest expenses of the entire federal budget. And worse is to come. The government has to refinance about $9 trillion of its debt over the next 4 years. That's roughly 1/3 of its debt. This debt was issued when interest rates were low, about 1.5% to 2%. Today, interest rates or yields on bonds are closer to 5%. That refinancing cost, which is coming over the next few years, is going to cause the government's interest costs to explode. Something has to be done. And that's where the 1934 playbook comes into focus. The idea, gaining traction, is to repeat Roosevelt's move, but on a much grander scale. A revaluation of gold to $15,000 would generate $3.9 trillion of windfall for the Treasury. It would wipe out the entire budget deficit for 2025 or 2026 when they do it, and it would allow the government to pay down a huge chunk of the national debt.
The financial system is evolving, and gold is once again at the forefront of this transformation. As we stand at the crossroads of economic history, one question looms large. Are we witnessing the dawn of a new golden age? Or is this merely a short-term shiny moment for the world's oldest currency? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.